we have to discuss on business is on page 194. G1, discussion of Kannapolis COPS and the construction of a new Cabarrus Health Alliance building. I believe this was submitted by Commissioner Burridge. Commissioner Burridge, did you have something you would like to talk about in regards to the Kannapolis COPS and the construction of the new CHA building?
Well, my concern was in this economy, is it really necessary to spend that much money to build a new building when we visited the building they're in already? And now I could be wrong, it didn't seem that overcrowded to me, but, it just seems like that we're spending, what is it, $7-point-something million plus the $6 million upfit the building, $15 million plus we're borrowing, what, $35 million total? Wasn't that what was on the agenda last month?
We're not borrowing any of the
Well,
money.
I know we're not borrowing it, but the county's going to be responsible for some of the money.
No, sir, we're not. What happens is the city of Kannapolis is going to be borrowing approximately $31 million, of which that $30 to $31 million, they are going to build a Health Alliance building for an amount not to exceed $13.5 million. And that is construction, land costs, everything is up to $13.5 million. And that repayment is going to be the responsibility of Kannapolis. We are going to share in regards to the revenues that are generated from the project, from the district, as it increases every year, to repay a note in equal sums with Kannapolis. The district is generating approximately I think it is about $3 million. Our share of that is $1.7 million, and the note payment on $31 million is less than the 1.7. It ends up being about 1.1 million, so that the properties increasing in value in that district is going to pay for the building. So the county is not borrowing any money. The county is not responsible for any of that debt. The county is saying that we're going to share in the repayment through the increased property values in that district, or in the district that's been created.
But that is tax dollars, correct?
Yes, sir. That is personal property as well as personal property as well as real estate. Yes, sir.
A quick correction on the amount of the note that you were talking about. Actually, that is the combined. It's the 1.6 plus the 1.3 or so from Kannapolis, and it will go up slightly over time. So it goes up to a little over $4 million at some point annually.
Annually, but we're responsible for
50%.
Right. Okay. So we're just, for you to be aware, we're not borrowing any money whatsoever. That's what Kannapolis is doing, and that's one of the things that the prior commission wanted to make abundantly clear, is that that is not our responsibility. And also in the agreement that I believe was drafted, that the borrowing of this money would not affect our Cabarrus County's bond rating or our, it's not debt coverage, but debt capacity. Thank you, Mrs. Dubois. So that where that helps us is that if this board chooses to borrow any money in the future, then it won't affect our rating. And we've got a word back not only from one agency, but I believe another agency, that says as long as we do what we agreed to do, then it would not affect it. So, and we've gotten 2 of them in writing, and the third one's coming in writing. We want to make certain that we're covered all of our bases.
Well, the other concern I've had, I know a lot of people in the county have had, is the position of where we're putting the building, almost on the Rowan County line. I've heard a lot of people complain about that. Now, as to whether it's built there or somewhere else, it really don't matter to me. But my only concern was that in the economy we're in, Mr. Ben Menacke announced yesterday that we probably 5 more years of 10% unemployment in this nation. And, where are the tax dollars going to come from? to pay all this money back.
Thank you, Mr. Burridge. Is there anything else any other discussion?
No, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Meisner?
Yeah, the way I see it is, I understand the COP funding and how this relates to the Health Alliance and the partnership with Kannapolis. Still, although we're collecting the extra money from the increased revenue from the research campus in that area, the county's still making a payment for the Health Alliance building, for our portion of the debt with Kannapolis. So the county is still making that payment. I have had discussions with Mike Legg this morning, and we had talked about the implications of this and basically how far this has come since the previous commission board has met. I guess there's been a period of about 2 weeks that the city of Kannapolis has moved forward with this since the previous board approved this. So how I see it is that this is too late in the game to return back to this. Now, if I would have been here in the discussions from the beginning, perhaps it would have been different. We're going back on something that was discussed by the previous board, something that's been decided by the previous board. So in my opinion, I feel as though I can't vote on this issue. This has been something that, like I said, has been previously decided, and it's been put here. I feel uncomfortable voting on it, seeing that a previous commission board has already resolved this issue.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I don't believe we have any consensus. Is there anything else that you can think of right now, Commissioner Burridge? Thank you, sir. Next matter we have is G2, which is on page 196. The request for additional funding for off-site inmate housing and related budget amendment. Mrs. Dubois.
Yes, we wanted to bring this before you this evening. Back in August, the sheriff had come in front of the board during a work session and had a discussion talking about the off-site inmate population. Over the last 2 years, the annex has been open, and we have not had to incur expenses of shipping out inmates. However, we do pay for safekeeping for inmates that we have to send to the state based on certain criteria that we cannot keep them in our facility, and we also send out juveniles because we do not keep them in our facility. But starting in July of this year, and if you can look on page 199, there's a little bit of statistical information to let you know that the number of days in which we're having to keep inmates off-site based on the population that we have in our facility is growing. Not each one of those inmates was there every day, but you can see that each month more inmates are being shipped out and we're having more billable days. Projecting this on the high end, and I do say that I did that on purpose, I'm looking at approximately $975,000 in a worst-case world to keep these inmates housed at those facilities through the remainder of the fiscal year. Typically, after Christmas, the population does go down. And part of the request for this is that we also have a growing female population, where we used to have just two, see exactly what the term is, 2 blocks that we kept female inmates in, and now we have 3 blocks. And because we have the female inmates in those blocks, it's forcing us to have more males that are having to be distributed to other areas and housed off-site. So based on that criteria, we established, calculating out, I worked with Paul Hunt, that approximately $100,000 a month to get us through the next 9 months. We are also about $60,000 in the hole right now. So that's where I came up with the $975,000. However, I am asking for a restriction on this money that it can only be used for this purpose. And if it's not needed for this purpose, it will return to fund balance in which the money's coming from, so there's no harm if I overestimated. So we didn't move the money out to to another area. We also did an evaluation on whether or not bringing in the detention officers 3 months earlier, if that would make a cost savings benefit, and it didn't. It would cost us approximately $375,000 more if we were to do that. There are other costs that I can't tell you exactly what they are, but they would be the mileage of transporting those inmates to the facilities. There would be the overtime that would be associated with that. So there are other costs that I can't even capture at this point. But to get us through the end of the year, this is the most cost-effective way, in my opinion, to handle this situation. And placing that restriction, this money can only be used for those inmates and cannot be transferred to any other line item for any other purchase, is the request that we have before you this evening.
Any questions for Ms. Dubois? Commissioner Ruth?
Yeah, just, I mean, obviously, I've had a little bit of history involving the jail over the last 5 years. And refresh my memory here, because I'm also 5 years older, but when are we, I mean, we're looking down, this is going to take us at least 9 months, or at the most 9 months. When are we looking at, what is the projected, I guess for anybody to answer it, what is the projected date for occupancy of the new jail?
We're planning to open it July 1st.
Okay.
And if we did it sooner, it would cost an additional $375,000.
I see that. I
right?
just know that there's people out there watching that have been following, watching us for years and wondering, well, when did we just build? So, understand, I think that just their understanding, I know that there was some delay because of needing to test the systems as well as some of the staffing issues and budgetary issues of staffing it up.
Right, and it's still not completed
Yeah,
today.
okay.
June,
Okay.
because we've only been billed through September.
Okay.
When you said the end of the year, you meant June 30th.
I'm so sorry, yes, the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. Sorry, my world.
Second, I didn't catch the reasoning why it's going to cost $375,000 more if we open it up sooner.
It's approximately, to move up the hiring of the detention officers, it's $524,000. Let me see if I can do this from my head. Then you would still have to pay for October through May 15th to house inmates to an outside facility, because they would not be prepared to open the facility until May 15th. So even though you hire them 3 months earlier, you're only getting a month and a half of the facility opening earlier. So when you net those costs against each other based on paying out $975,000 versus $524,000 plus 7.5 months worth of housing outside, you come up with a net savings of $375,000 to ship them out.
Now, a question that you may not be able to answer today, but if you can, great. If you cannot, if you can get it by our next meeting, how many of those prisoners or defendants are serving a local sentence as opposed to a DOC sentence? And what I mean is that
Paul Hunt here,
he is, but I don't know if he has that information. That's the reason why I wanted to.
because we had that conversation. I asked several questions of him, and he explained it to me. I think he'd do a better job than I would explain it to you.
And, if you could just explain the difference so that more of an education.
Well, about 80 to 85% of our inmates are pretrial inmates, and the ones that we are shipping off right now are pretrial. We do have some that are getting the state sentence but are on what they call backlog with the state. We have a deal with Rutherford County, who is housing some of those people for us, and they're holding them until the state picks them up, and it's kind of, a wash, because they charge us pretty much what the state's paying us, so that's getting those people out of our facility. But those are the only ones that are sentenced that we're shipping off anywhere. Everybody that's getting shipped off, we're having to make trips. Say we may have 6 or 7 people in Ashe County that have trial in the next couple of days or have court, so we take another 6 or 7 up to Ashe County and we just switch them out. So those people do not have any state sentences on them.
Now, when you say a backlog with the state does not have a place to put them.
Well, it takes them a little bit. We have to pile them up 8 or 10 before they finally decide they'll come. They have room for them.
And when it goes from pretrial to a person pleading guilty or being found guilty, they have a delay before we start getting paid by the state to hold them?
Right. We have, we can hold people up to 30 days on a sentence in our facility. Anything over 30 days has to go to the state of North Carolina. And they don't always automatically have space for them. So once they start and they actually have the state sentence that they are serving, then we start getting paid on that backlog.
Now, the 30-day sentence that is by order, or is that because I thought it was
That's
60 or?
the full capacity letter that we're still under.
That's the 30
is-
days?
Yes,
Now, once that full capacity letter goes away,
90 days.
okay, so we would hold them, any sentence that was less than 90 days
Right.
is the taxpayers of Cabarrus County.
Yes, sir.
91 day or longer to serve
Carolina.
is the state of North Carolina.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions for Chief Deputy Hunt or Ms. Dubois? We have a motion to,
I'd make a motion to put it under consent.
okay. We have a motion to place this under consent agenda. Do we have a second? We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
And just to look at your table, you'll be able to see what Paul was referring to, Mr. Hunt, that Rutherford County, I broke those populations apart so that you can see that the bulk of them are pretrial.
Right.
The ones that are at Ashe and Transylvania County are pretrial, and you have very few at Rutherford. So you can see that there's not a whole lot of state issue at this point in time.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, just to point out that the, probably will be where Ashe County is today, because Ashe County's opened their new jail, so that's why they got the extra space there for us to go up there. So I guess when ours gets open,
Okay.
we'll be doing the same for other folks.
Next matter we have is on page 200, and that is the Harrisburg Area Land Use Plan Update and Public Hearing. This time I call on Mrs. Morris.
Good evening. I am pleased to present to you the Harrisburg Area Land Use Plan Update. This project started in July of 2009, and it's taken us a while, but we've finally gotten here. We have had excellent participation from the Harrisburg and surrounding community. We've had over 150 people attend the meetings that we held at the elementary school, and we've had over 120 people attend. We had an open house. We got very good feedback from the community. This plan represents what we heard from the community. Ms. Meg Nealon is here this evening as well from Land Design to answer any questions that you may have. Throughout the course of the project, we did have 7 joint meetings, and those meetings included folks from the Harrisburg, the Advisory Committee, the Board of Education participated heavily in this process. A spinoff from this will be a set of guidelines that the schools can use when they're looking for school sites. We also had town council members represented, water and sewer authority people represented, conservation district, elected officials, planning and zoning officials. So those meetings, we just combined them all together and just had one big working group to try to move the plan forward. In September of this year, we did present the final draft document to the Planning and Zoning Commissions. We had a joint meeting of the Harrisburg and the Cabarrus commissions. The Cabarrus County Commission did approve the plan that evening on September 16th. Harrisburg talked about the plan and decided that they wanted to make the final decision back at Town Hall, but they did approve the plan the next month. So both P&Z boards have approved the plan, and it is ready to move forward to the elected officials. That's what we're here this evening to answer any questions that you may have, and then we would need to hold a public hearing on the 20th. If you remember, there is no statutory process for the adoption of a land use plan, but we typically do have a public hearing so that people can comment either for or against the plan. So we would ask that you schedule that for the 20th, and the plan is included, as well as that website was set up. Hopefully you had a chance to look at that. And again, Ms. Nealon and I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have about the plan to get you ready for the public hearing.
Any questions for Mrs. Morris? Well, I think it's very important. I want to, Councilman Balcom is here from Harrisburg tonight, and he's been here for many of our meetings, and I want to thank him for coming. I think it's very important. We had the opportunity to work with Concord on a land use plan. This gives the opportunity for a lot of people to have an understanding about what their property is going to look like in 3, 5, 10-year periods. So I think it's very, very important. In regards to the P and Z boards, the planning and zoning boards, what were some of the questions or what was some of the discussion there?
Some of they really didn't have a lot of questions. Some of the questions that they asked were if the elected boards decided to make changes, once the plan started moving forward, would it go back to the planning and zoning boards? We were fortunate that a lot of our planning and zoning folks attended those meetings, and so did Harrisburg's planning and zoning commission members, so they were very up to speed on the process. We did have a couple of comments, more related, I think, to personal situations that folks had going on with their property. But overall, and Meg can if there's anything else that she wants to add. But overall, they were very positive about it. I think the town of Harrisburg, is ready to move forward with the new plan. It's been about 10 years since this original plan was adopted. It is outdated, and we recognize the fact that it's outdated, so I think that they are excited to have the new plan that their staff can use to move forward with, and so that their elected officials can make those decisions. I don't know if you all are aware, but in the town of Harrisburg, their planning and zoning board is a recommendation board, and those final decisions do stay with their town council. So it would be very important for them to have that document as they move forward to use for development proposals that come in.
Good. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just got one. I guess the lesson I certainly learned, I assume we all learned it from the central area land use plan, is always going to be the few that are, and you mentioned some personal situations, but the few that are the outliers and that might have some concern or something that maybe a minority opinion on things. And I guess before our meeting on the 20th, that we may hear from some of those that come to us. Is there any what is the big significant issue, I guess, that is there any controversy that was, in any of the, or pretty well, group hug broke out and everybody singing Kumbaya by the time he finished it,
Well, actually, they did. We started off very, very rough.
Or the first couple of meetings
The
were?
first couple of meetings. And I don't know if Meg has anything to add, or even Chad, because he was at some of those meetings. But by the end of the process, we did have some of the naysayers that initially, were anti-land use and, the county's trying to tell me what to do with my property. They actually were happy with the end result. One of the areas, and I can put it up on here for you and show you.
It may not come up. Which page, do you know?
It would be the figures section. It'd be at the very end. You should have 3 different documents, I believe, that are attached. But if you look, this area here, this yellow area, that area actually started out as a green area and as a preservation area. And we heard loud and clear from the property owners in that particular quadrant that they were more interested. They did not want their development rights to be taken away. They wanted to try to keep it at a similar density to what it was then. And eventually that is where we ended up.
Is this what you're talking about, Mrs. Moore?
Yes. We started out with
especially south of Rocky River Road.
3 different options, and then 2 of those kind of combined together into a hybrid, and that's what we moved forward with. So we did hear from a lot of the people in that southern, south of Rocky River, in that area, a lot of large property owners, 50, 100 acres. And then one of the other issues that was a very hot topic through this process was the high-speed rail project. So that is accounted for in the plan. The latest information that we had is what is reflected in this land use plan. As with anything with DOT, that's subject to change. But we did look at that, analyze that, and that is on, it would be figure 11 reflects that. I think we would actually have to go maybe back up, Jay.
This one?
Yeah, that's the land, that's the interlocal agreement. That one right there. So that map
Page
is,
363?
it reflects the
There's
the crossings and what's happening there now. But that was a large part of discussions. We actually had representation there from DOT Rail at the meetings. So they did participate in this process. They heard what the folks were saying, and that was reflected. The Carolina Thread Trail that we adopted this past year and that you all adopted, that is reflected in this transportation plan too. That's what you see, those, the green lines. That reflects either something that was in the Livable Blueprint community document that's adopted or Carolina Thread Trail. So this looks at multimodal transportation. We're not just talking about cars. We're talking about, people walking, people biking. And that did get a very positive response from the community to have those alternate modes of travel.
Commissioner Meisner or Commissioner Cruz?
One more now, I'm sorry. Just the Shamrock Road, I know that that's been quite a bone of contention about how you're going to accommodate the two businesses that are on the south side of the rail line there and the closure of that crossing. Is there any resolution at all been done yet on that?
Not to my knowledge. And what is reflected here was the last official word that DOT had on the books. I know, I believe that the town is still trying to help work through those issues, but at this point, I'm not aware of any changes to that at this time.
I just wanted to say, I was in a few of those meetings, so I understand how difficult it is, and I appreciate your hard work with this, and thanks for your time the other day thoroughly explaining this to me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It seems as though this will also help out some of the issues in regards to the Middleton residents, I believe. I mean, to a certain degree. I mean, not completely. We're trying to work on that coming up in the next couple of months, I believe. But I know that this will help there, and I know Mr. Marshall's been very instrumental in those discussions.
It
who's
does
coming up
limit the
behind you.
densities in those areas.
I think that's right. I think more than anything else, it won't make it worse.
Okay.
Because they were looking, that was a real concern. Obviously, you've heard that not from just from those residents, but residents throughout that area, because it is so flat and drains so poorly that there is an area with what is now projected to be lower density there, so you don't have as intense a development, as much impervious area, and increased flooding.
Okay. And also, and we've been discussing about with the high-speed rail coming through, is it an opportunity for us to be able to use that for transportation into downtown Charlotte? With the plan that we have, that doesn't prevent that from taking place.
It does not, and if you've seen the proposals for what would be the extension of the Blue Line towards the university, that includes park ride lots that this rail would ultimately intersect. So those opportunities exist. Obviously, funding is the biggest issue there. They're talking about actually having to build less of that now than they initially planned, but it still allows a connection from this rail and the high-speed rail back to that Links project.
Good. Any other questions?
The only comment that I wanted to make is what I like about all the hard work that you put into is that it's very important to get feedback from the people that are actually impacted. And I think that not only with the land use plan, but with some other things that we're discussing, it's very important that we hear. I mean, I don't live in that part of the county, so I can go out there and it all makes sense to me, what you're telling me, but I'm not directly impacted because my home's not right there. And I think it's very important that we make sure we do hear from people. And it's nice to hear you say that, some people came at the beginning and were not happy, but then during the process works well. And we can get feedback. It doesn't mean that everybody's happy, like Commissioner Cruz said, but it's a really good process to go through. And I'm glad that from a county perspective that we value that input. And I hope that the citizens of that area and any other area where we do land use plans or other projects understand that we do value their input. So,
And we did have several people. We had the website set up so that there was a virtual meeting section. And we did have a lot of people who went and commented. Everything was posted up there after the meetings in case if folks could not make it to the meeting. And we did have people utilize that site. So that was a new tool that we used this time, and I think it was a very good tool.
Good. Do we have a motion to place this under new business and hold a public hearing for the adoption of the land use plan as well as the interlocal agreement?
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second? Second. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. This is the interlocal agreement, which is the exact same thing. Is there any further input that you want to give, Mrs. Morris?
This is the second part of the land use plan, or is actually the first part. We will need for this to be adopted first before we can move forward with the land use plan. It is similar to the one that we did for the central area land use plan, but it only has 2 areas and the time frame is a lot shorter. This particular agreement is good for 3 years on the first area and then 5 years on the second area. The town of Harrisburg has already approved the document, so once you all approve it, then we will have it recorded in the Register of Deeds office so that it will be on file. And I would ask, again, either that this comes before the land use plan in the agenda, or this could actually be a consent agenda item if you choose. There's no public hearing required.
Any questions for Mrs. Morris? We have a motion to place this under the consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next we have is G5, which is found on page 376. It's the update on regional emergency radio system. I call on Mr. Downs at this time.
Wow, it's been a long time since we've been working on this project, and we're actually moving forward on it. Approximately 2 years ago, the Board of Commissioners set as one of their goals for that year, and then for the next 2-year benchmark and the 5-year benchmark, was to try to set up a consolidated 911 system. While this does not do that, we're at least working toward a shared equipment and all working with the same equipment in the same system. So what we're doing now is we made several attempts to consolidate into one 911 center. However, we're going to continue to operate with 3 centers based on the discussions that were taken with the City of Concord and the City of Kannapolis. Last year, the board approved the county to use 911 funds to pay for additional equipment to hook Concord and Kannapolis system into our 911 phone system. So we're all working on with the same equipment. However, we're still working out of 3 different locations. But we're able to, as soon as the state allows us or gives us permission, we will actually purchase that equipment. We're still waiting on the state since the board's made their decision. So the next step was to work on the actual radio system itself, and that's the backbone of the system. Our current system is an analog system, and as you know, with technology, that doesn't stick around very long. So everything is going digital, and Motorola has told us, as well as the City of Concord and City of Kannapolis, that we have to update our system. And there's several reasons why we have to do it. They're no longer going to make the parts. They're not going to support it, but for a couple more years. Some of the parts that we have right now, if one of them were to go down, it may be a while before we can even find one if there's one out there. So we're moving towards the new system. 2 years ago, our board, you funded the beginning of that transition of transitioning all of our analog radios into digital radios. The radios have been purchased. They're just about 99% complete, I believe, with that. And that was a little in excess of $1 million there. The radios that we have now are operating on the analog system, but they will be able to switch over to the digital system as soon as it happens. So where we are now, we are currently, the system is housed at Station 3 with Concord, and the City of Concord, or the City of Kannapolis and Cabarrus County are members of that system, and we pay an annual fee to participate in that system. 2015, this system goes away.
The analog system.
The analog system goes away. The new system is going to cost somewhere in the neighborhood of about $7 to $9 million. Now, of course, that would be divided 3 ways proportionately. Right now, we divide the maintenance fees by the number of radios or the number of users that are there. We're not quite sure what the best way to do that. We're still in the discussions on how to divide that lump sum into the jurisdictions. And bear in mind, too, the county also the majority there, or a lot of the radios that we're paying a maintenance fee on are actually owned by their city of, or not the cities, but the volunteer fire departments as well. So we're covering their fees as well, since they're working and contracting with the county to provide that service. To move forward, our budget, as well as the city's budgets, as we know, the economy is not in a good situation right now, so we looked at options of pushing that large number out a few more years. And one of those was to try to enhance our current system and get as most life as we can out of it. Well, the situation arose, or the opportunity arose, that the city of Charlotte is operating a federally funded, state-funded, and locally funded regional system. It's currently the city of Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, Union County, the city of Monroe, and I believe it's Gaston County, or the city of Gastonia, are all already connected to this system. It is operating very well at this time. And the regional system will allow you to, the main system will be in Charlotte, but we would operate independently. All three of our jurisdictions would still operate just as we are, but there will be, the other benefits of that system would be if we're crossing county lines, if we're going throughout the state, there's not a whole lot of transition. You're still using the same radio. You might have to switch a channel, but that's about it. You're still able to talk, and you can talk back and forth between the agencies as well. We just talked a little bit about our deputies are transporting inmates all over the state or all over the region. This will enable that. If there's a chase that they can do that. We're always working mutual aid to response scenes, both fire, EMS, and the law enforcement. So this is some of the benefits of the regional system. So what we have before you tonight, it's a little bit amended as far as the action, the requested action, excuse me, is the opportunity has come up. Mecklenburg, or Charlotte-Mecklenburg, has presented a potential for a grant for the amount of $975,000. For that $975,000, they are offering it to us to hook into their system. If we agree to hook into their system, they will use that money to come in and upgrade our current system, repair some of the parts that need to be repaired, replace some of the parts that need to be replaced. And what that will do is give us somewhere between 2 to 3, maybe even 4 years of extended life in our current system, without the concerns that something's going to go down and we may be shut down for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it takes to get that part. So that's where we're at. It's going to cost, and they're going to actually expend about $971 of that $975,000 on our system, and that's what they're proposing to do. Now, there's going to be some other, I've got a couple of interlocal agreements listed there before you. One would be to access and for them to maintain, and that would be between the City of Concord, Kannapolis, and the county going in as one in contracting with the City of Concord, or the City of Charlotte. That's one. The other one is going to be a governance. There's going to be a governing board, staff level board that would actually govern this system. And those representatives, each group would have one representative on that board, and that's some of the things that we would have to work out. So those two interlocal agreements are not finished yet. Charlotte is still working on them. We're transferring our back comments as they're going along, and they did not have them ready for this evening. So we're not able to do that tonight. What I am asking you to do is before you, and it's part of your additional information that was added today. Kay, I'm not sure what page that was on.
Starts on page 677.
There is an interlocal agreement, or a better word, or a better description is actually a letter of intent. And that's what we're asking, or Charlotte is asking, that the county, the City of Concord, and the City of Kannapolis to sign a letter of intent that we intend to move forth and in good faith over the next, we're actually trying to, they wanted us to have all of this done before December 31st. They're willing to go ahead and commit that money, but they have to do that before December 31st, and then they're allowing us an additional 30 days to January 31st to get those interlocal agreements in place. So that's what we're here tonight for. We need that. City of Concord is taking it to their board tomorrow, and they will vote on Thursday. City of Kannapolis is taking it to their board Monday of next week, and it's their only meeting this month, so they will actually make the decision on that at that meeting. So what we're requesting this board tonight is to place it on the agenda for your regular meeting, that we would agree by letter of intent to pursue this direction. I've checked with our attorney, Mr. Cook, and myself. We both reviewed this. This is not committing the county anything financially. All this is saying that we will act in good faith to work out between us meaning Concord, Kannapolis, and the county, and the city of Charlotte on these two interlocal agreements, that we would find a mutual understanding or a mutual ground that we would all agree to sign the documents. And then there's a third document that's going to be between Concord, Kannapolis, and the county as to how we will survive, or how we will act as one entity. How will we pick that person that serves on the board? How will we make decisions internally as far as the future of the system, and when do we add on to it, when do we enhance it, and that type of thing. So tonight is the letter of intent. We need to have that in Charlotte's hand. If the board chooses to move forward, we need to have that in their hands by December 31st.
Any questions?
One other comment. We did have a third-party consultant come in and review this. Do we do nothing? Do we go to the P25 system, which we're going to ultimately have to go to? Or do we take this intermediary option? Their recommendation, the best way to extend the life of our system, the cheapest route to do that, is to go with the route that we're bringing you tonight.
Any questions for Mr. Downs? Mr. Cook.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just add a couple of things to Mr. Downs' presentation. As he stated, there are 3 documents that would comprise the total set of agreements for this radio system. The main interlocal between the City of Charlotte and then the City of Kannapolis, City of Concord, and Cabarrus County, that was drafted some time ago by the attorneys for the City of Charlotte. Mr. Seyfried and I think Ms. Kolchinsky for the City of Concord, and I have all commented on that, and we're just waiting for the revised draft to come back on it. The governance interlocal, I think, has already been approved, at least in terms of legal content. The final interlocal that would be among Kannapolis, Concord, and the county has not yet been drafted. We're going to do that after these others are basically the language has been approved.
Yeah. The interlocal for governance has been drafted, approved for legality, but there's still some comments from the City of Concord and Kannapolis as far as nothing that we can't work out those. But we've not went back to discuss that because we're waiting on the other document from Charlotte as well.
And this MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding, from a legal perspective is fine.
Okay. Any questions? Does this protect or better protect our deputies out in the more rural parts of the county?
It will, ultimately, because we'll be able to get some of the reception. Once we hook into the regional system, we'll be able to use some of Mecklenburg's towers as well that are also located just across the county lines in some areas. We're still going to have some areas that we need to add towers in the future, the northeast and potentially the northwest. But there are towers that are in Mecklenburg that are right across the line that we will be able to use some of their equipment as well.
Okay. In regards to the volunteer fire departments, we're able to help them in regards to getting the new radios, if need be.
There's 2 options that you would have there. One would be that that the board here would decide to fund those radios. The other is they have their service district tax that they can use to fund that.
And that's part of what the service taxes, or the fire tax is for?
That's correct.
Okay. In regards to future costs, is this a lower cost to the county?
Well, it will.
In years to come?
The immediate, it will push the need to buy that new service out several years until hopefully that the economy will turn around and we'll be better equipped to do that. There will be an increased cost in maintenance somewhere between. Currently, we pay $118,000 a year to the City of Concord for the maintenance of our radios and in the system. Depending on what level we go with the City of Charlotte, there's going to be anywhere between a $50,000 to $100,000 increase per year, but the service level on the maintenance and the availability or the turnaround on the maintenance is going to be much better. And then they'll also be able to transition us much easier into that P25 system when the time comes.
Okay. As if other municipalities want to start their own police force, this doesn't inhibit them from doing that?
No, sir. The smaller towns that are already contracting with the sheriff, they're already running with the sheriff, through the sheriff system now.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Do we have a motion to place this under consent agenda for our December 20th meeting?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. Next is the G6, which is the presentation of the fiscal year 2010 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report.
And that will be made on December 20th.
Okay, we just need to move this into new business.
I move we place this under new business.
We got a motion, we have a second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. G7, which is the approval of modifications to the parks fees and charges policies fiscal year 2011, 2012. From Parks Director, Mrs. Strong.
Thank you. The park staff, as well as the Park Commission, has reviewed over the last several months the existing fee and charge policy that we have, and what you have are recommendations by both for some changes. Most of it, corrections, clarifications, things like that. However, there are several recommendations in there that I know you need to review. 501c3 organizations. We have quite a few 501c3, Cabarrus County charitable 501c3 organizations that want to have something at the parks every, I'm going to say maybe 20 times a year, maybe more, and they don't want to pay. It's usually a fundraiser. It's not like they're going out there just to have a picnic or something. It's usually a fundraiser, whether it's a juvenile diabetes walk, Red Cross, blood drive, something like that. Our current policy says that they have to pay unless they are a co-sponsor with our department. We co-sponsor a lot of times when maybe we don't gain a lot out of it. So that was one of the things we wanted to look at, is having 501c3 Cabarrus County charitable organization have one event a year at any of the parks that would be free. During our open hours, if there was any additional manpower, just like all the rest of our policies, then they would have to pay for that if they were coming in early, staying late, using heat, AC, something like that. We would also have that going in correlation with, if you were going to be a co-sponsor with us, then there are things that you would need to do that would be of benefit to us, and that's on page 7 right there, where you have even meeting the local food policy 10% commitment, something that we have to get out of it, benchmark, sustainability, something that is of a benefit to the Parks Department and not just so that you don't have to pay. Let's see. Cabin and tent rental increase. We did a little survey and checked all of the organizations around. Morrow Mountain, $88 a night. Dan Nicholas Park, $47 a night. Cane Creek Park, $65 a night. High Rock Marina and Campground, $79 a night. Statesville KOA Campgrounds, $49.50 a night for the cabins, and currently we're $35. We've recommended to $50, which puts us right at the lower end of most of them. We've had, the reservations have just been unbelievable. There are very few weekends throughout even the winter time that the cabins aren't full. And from about May until September, Monday through Friday are pretty full too. Another recommendation on that was to have a 2-night minimum stay so that we didn't have somebody coming in, they only stayed Friday night or Saturday night, when somebody was wanting to stay the weekend and then there wasn't a cabin available and that left an open night in the middle of the weekend. So we wanted to put a 2-night, so that would be Thursday and Friday, Friday, Saturday, Saturday, Sunday. They would have to stay at least 2 nights. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they can stay 1 night if they want to. And that would be year-round, not seasonal.
You can put 6 people in the cabins out there?
Yes. There are
Six adults.
6 adults. There's 2 bunk beds, there's twin-size mattresses, a full-size bed, and a futon that sleeps 2. So people want to do more, and that's why we have to limit it to 6. And with the number of reservations that we're having to replace the covers and things more often. So that was another reason that we wanted to, we recommended the increase. The tent sites, it's currently $10, we wanted to increase those to 15, and same thing, those same facilities that I named off a while ago with Dan Nicholas. The cheapest one is $15, and that's a primitive site in Mecklenburg County. Everything else is 19, 22, 20, 34, and we were recommending going up to 15 because we do have primitive sites, fire ring, and a pad, and that's what you have. Of course, we have a very nice bathhouse that's close, and everybody can use that. A couple other things that we looked at, change rental times. That was as a result of last year when we were trying to make some changes and make some cuts and save some money. And we changed our park hours. We moved them back an hour. We had already approved the fee and charge policy, so that is not reflected in here. We changed that. And then each time period where we had the reduction in force with leaving one ranger, it's harder to clean up, so we started or recommend to start the reservation period 30 minutes later and end 30 minutes earlier so that it gives the ranger time to get the site cleaned up and picked up before the next group comes in. So that's where right now they're from 8 to 2 and 3 to 8 would be 8:30 to 2:30 and 3:30 to 7:30 so that it gives the ranger 30 minutes time to get it ready and not have to come right in. 8 o'clock opens up and somebody comes in. Mini golf, paddle boat hours changed also. That changed last year with the reduction in workforce, and we already had this approved too. So we're just making that match what we're currently going by. Those are the major changes. I'll be glad to discuss any of the others that are in there, but they're pretty much clarifications, making sure that we have the safety and risk officer reviewing what he needs to review, making sure, and we have it in there, but we're just clarifying in certain sections, and same thing with our $1 million liability policy, making sure that that is spelled out.
Any questions for Mrs. Strong? How is this going to get out to the general public other than the Channel 22 meeting?
It'll be on our website. We'll have it on, where we have the online reservations now. This is listed there, all the fees are there, so we'll have that, and then we'll work with Amy in getting out the information.
It'll also be available at each one of the parks.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments?
I'd just like to add, that, you know, on the fees, because I'm sure this is one of those things that can easily, we start hearing people about, is it, and I guess in the communication, make sure that is communicated about. Comparing other facilities in the area, this still remains a tremendous bargain compared to a lot of the other facilities. Because I'm sure some folks will, you know, bristle when they've had to pay $15 rather than $10 for a tent site. So.
One other major thing, I'm sorry, that we did do was we have the 14-day stay, but we've put where you have to be gone for 7 days before you can come back. We were having a little difficulty with that.
Any other discussion? We have a motion to place this under the consent agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second to place this under the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. Next is page 590. Is the approval of Part F grant application request for Rob Wallace Park.
Some of you know, some of you will not know that we did not get funded last year, or actually 2010. The grant cycle start June or July is when they do funding, and the application was not funded this year. So we got with our recreation regional consultant, along with W.K. Dixon, who helped us with the grant, and tried to figure out how we could make it a better grant so that we would score higher. The county was doing the survey this year, which worked out perfect because one of the things that we scored less points on was the survey as far as our demographics and how that it was done. So we had that available. And Ms. Hawkins worked with us on adding a few specific questions about Rob Wallace Park, which the authority wanted in the survey. Other than that, we just made some clarifications, made the site plan more legible for their directions, and changed a little bit of the description, the one-page description that goes with it. Same process again this year. January 31st is the deadline for submittal. June or July is when they will be awarded. It would be October or November before, if we were awarded a grant, before we would begin anything. And same thing, we would have to spend our $1 million, and then we would be reimbursed quarterly, however, monthly, however we chose to do that. We have 3 years to spend that, so if we were awarded a grant, we would have up until 2014 to spend that money.
So you're asking us to be able to approve for the grant application again?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions for Mrs. Strong? Do we have a motion to place this under consent agenda?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Under G9, this is the commissioners' appointments for 2011. The updated information in regards to meetings is on page 681, I believe, Mrs. Honeycutt. Didn't know if everybody had a chance to look through there and if you had any comments or what your thoughts are in regards to commission liaison and commission appointments. It's hopefully exhaustive. It was certainly exhausting getting it together and trying to figure it out. So everybody's had a chance to look at it. Okay. We have a motion to place this under consent agenda for August the 20th. I mean, excuse me, December the 20th. December the 20th.
I'd make that motion.
We have a motion, we have a second. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. There are some meetings in December that I would encourage you to go ahead and start meeting. I believe that the Department of Social Services has a Christmas luncheon coming up soon that Mrs. Honeycutt can send that out. I know that was sent out to us before, but I'm not certain if Commissioner Meismer and Commissioner Burge have that on there, have been done, that if we can get that updated. And that's the only one that's sticking out in my mind right now, because they have a short meeting beforehand and then they have the presentation after that. Okay, next we have is developing our legislative goals. And that is found on page G10. What that is that, well, I'll turn it over to Mr. Day for.
Well, the veterans here already are familiar with the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, and our two new commissioners will be soon. If you have any questions, ask Commissioner Carruth, and he'll fill you in. He has intimate knowledge of that organization. But the practice of the board has been more recently to review those items that are approved by the NCACC board, and then adding anything to those that might be of particular interest to Cabarrus County. So we're suggesting the same thing. Those items will not be adopted until, I believe it's January 20 and 21 is when that group meets. So what we've included in here are the items from last year, as well as a request from the Parks Commission, and also a suggestion from the town of Mount Pleasant, and that was to seek a change in the requirements or criteria for rural center funding to match more closely those used by the USDA rural agency, that kind of lessens the burden to some extent and would make areas of Cabarrus County, such as Mount Pleasant, eligible for funding. So we would just suggest that this be addressed at the appropriate time. If the board does have its retreat in late January, as is suggested on the meeting resolution for next year, then that would be a good time to have that discussion, because it would follow the NCACC meeting.
Typically, we try and get this done before the legislative session starts. However, this is going to be the long session for the legislation, and they're going to start January.
I'm not sure what the dates are myself.
For some reason, it's about the time we have our retreat anyway, so that I would think that if we can talk about it at our retreat and narrow it down, I think it's always important to narrow it down to about 5, no more than 5 goals. It's kind of hard to get it down to 5, but frankly, if you get pages upon pages, I'm not satisfied that they have an opportunity to understand and be able to voice our concerns up in the legislature. So I would suggest we get it down to 5. And I know that the chamber asks us for our goals. So Mrs. Carter, if you'll let them know that we'll look at it at the retreat and have that adopted to present and to give that so we can have it in conjunction. I think the chamber's already done theirs. I'm not certain, but maybe they have.
And, Mr. Chairman, if I could put a plug in for the Legislative Goals Conference, it's going to be the 20th and 21st of January. And the Legislative Goals Committee has already kind of adopted their priorities pending approval by the Board of Directors for the association. But it is open to any commissioner to go up to that conference. And I don't have the particulars. I guess we'll get that, probably Kay will get that pretty soon. Or he has the location already. It's at Sheridan, I believe, and Durham, I believe, is where it's going to be at. And but it's a chance to voice its opinion. I think through the whole legislative goals process parts that I witnessed, as long as it didn't involve spending any money, then it was, met favorably. But I think everybody pretty well knew that there was nothing going to fly if it involved any money. So
I believe we have our retreat tentatively planned for the 28th and 29th. Is that? I mean, we'll look at it in a second, but I just wanted to make certain it didn't encompass the 20th and 21st, which is a Thursday, Friday. Okay, so if we can all look at that and come to the retreat with our own opinions as to what our kind of top 5 are. Next we have is G11. Now, Mrs. Honeycutt, would you like to explain to us what the importance of this is? G11, establishing the meetings for next year.
Would you like for me to review it?
The importance of, we have to have that resolution so that we can publish our meetings.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Know when they're going to be heard and when we're going to have possible public discussion about public business. We have not said, there's not been a county assembly day in Raleigh yet?
I haven't looked today, but as of last week, it had not, the website hadn't been updated.
haven't been established yet.
Okay. So we have, except for May the 19th, we've gotten the dates set so far. Okay. If we have a motion to place this under consent agenda for the December the 20th meeting.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr.
And
Chairman, can I get a clarification on the legislative goals? Did you all place that on the agenda?
we did not place that on the agenda. We're going to discuss it at our retreat.
Great, okay.
If you'll make certain it gets placed in the retreat so that we can have that discussed then in a little bit more detail, but that has
Right.
not been, we did not vote on that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And that is what we have right now presented for our agenda right now. Is that correct, Mrs. Honeycutt? Is there?
G12.
I'm sorry. On
And
page
also the
675, Chief Deputy Hunt, request of a new Hickory Ridge Middle School Resource Officer. Chief Hunt.
Good evening. I forgot to say earlier today, too, Sheriff Riley just expressed his regret for not being here tonight. He's taking care of getting these other guys sworn in today. We are asking for middle schools, Hickory Ridge Middle School School Resource Officer. Can't really explain what happened during the budget time with that, but I think that we may have had a misunderstanding of the contract that we used to have with the school, but we're fully funding those people now. And with the new school resource officer at the middle school, that is funded by us, or, by the county. And we had tried some grant applications with that, none of that went through. We have been working at the school since August. It opened in August. We have someone assigned out there, but we need to actually have that position in our on our office as far as having that actual position there. We need to have that. Would start out at an entry-level position because, of course, we put an experienced officer out there, but the new money coming in will be a new officer being hired.
Okay. Mr. Day?
Just to make it clear, when we discovered that that new position was not in the budget for a resource officer at that school, I asked the sheriff if he would consider placing an existing deputy that was assigned to patrol or somewhere else in the school, and at least for the first 6 months of the year. And he agreed to do that. So this is the follow-up to provide the remainder of the funding.
In regards to the request for the position, is the salary of $23,786 for 6 months or for the whole year?
It should be for 6 months,
Okay.
just to get us through to June 30th.
Okay. Any questions for Chief Deputy Hunt?
I have one after this motion. But it's not, it doesn't have to do with Hickory Ridge, but similar but different. So if you want to go ahead and finish with this one, then I do want to ask a question, follow-up question.
Where's the funding coming from if we were to fund this position, Mrs. Dubois?
Contingency.
The commissioner's contingency?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion of the board? We have a motion to place this under new business or consent?
Place it under consent agenda. Move the motion.
Okay, we have a motion to place the sheriff's, school resource officer at Hickory Ridge Middle School on the consent agenda. We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
My follow-up question would be, Winkler Middle School is under construction now. Will that be a sheriff's position? Or is that in the city limits that would then be the?
It's going to be in
I
the
think
city
it
of
is, but I wanted
Concord.
to
They
make sure.
may, I mean, if they opt not to, we'll probably try to do that, but they'll probably try to get the school resource officer there.
Yeah, they
Because that one
have,
will be in the city.
there is no school resource officer, last I know, at Fur, which is in the city.
Well, they don't typically put them at elementary schools. You
The
just put
resource
'em at
officers go to the middle
me.
and the high schools.
Middle and high school.
Then we
I'm
do
talking
the
about
dare.
officer,
Right.
sorry.
Dear officer, okay.
Right.
There you go. I was wondering about the middle school because of this being a middle school and just
Right.
what's better, of course, if we can, since we know that there's a middle school under construction. So if it's in the county, that would obviously come before the sheriff.
Right.
If it's in the city limits, then that would become before the city of Concord. But at least it's just, I'm just doing a reminder, I guess, to keep that on the radar somewhere, to verify before next year in July, when the budget cycle starts, that we plug in for a resource officer if it becomes our responsibility.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that takes care of what we have as the printed agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner
there was
Ruth.
one, the old business with the.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the Animal Preservation Protection Advisory Committee. Just wanted to update y'all. Of course, our meeting was held, we have not had a meeting since our regular meeting last month. We will be meeting again next Monday, the 13th. There is just to kind of give you a little, for the sake of Commissioners Burridge and Meismer, what is starting to happen and seeing happening is the idea that we need to basically reorganize and reorient with the Humane Society, strengthen relationship with them. As y'all know, we don't have a formal contract with them to operate to occupy the animal shelter where it is now. The Humane Society, I know, is moving towards purchasing a new shelter. However, what you have happening is you have some sheltering operations that are run by our animal control officers, which is not really anything that was a part of their responsibility. They're responsible primarily for going out and seizing stray animals, picking those up. But what has happened is over the years, the staff out there has worked to try to find homes for these animals outside of the Humane Society. What the feeling is if we can take we budget about $115,000 a year towards animal shelter operations, which goes to the sheriff's office. If we were to reorganize so that we would bring them back to their core mission of just being the field enforcement officers, cruelty investigators, and take the sheltering operations and the money and put all of that underneath one contract with the Humane Society, we could also establish the criteria that we need to put in place to, as far as the euthanasia rates, as far as the requiring them to work with the other rescue groups that are in the community. And I believe that on that same vein, there's a lot of cooperation starting to increase between those various rescue groups, which is really a very good thing. So I think that this next meeting, we have a resolution. I want to present it on the 20th. There's a copy in your agenda. I've wordsmithed that there was some wording changed on a couple of the paragraphs, and I'll get that to Kate to get distributed to everyone before the meeting so you can go take a look at that. I want the committee to take one more look at it next Monday. But I think the next step for the committee is to start looking at what the criteria would be for that contract, how that would look. And I guess, I don't know at this point in time, John, there maybe needs some staff, assistance as far as how do we want to proceed as far as when we get ready to move forward with a contract to bring that before this board, how we would do that as far as drafting something or putting something, the program together that would become we'd go from the criteria to a formal contract and communication then with the Humane Society to work that out. So,
Yep.
that's it.
I believe that takes care of all the information that we have before the board. Is there anything I'm missing, Mrs. Honeycutt? Okay. Again, we had a successful night tonight. It was a good meeting, and we have 4 good years to work together on a lot of different issues within the county. I look forward to working with each and every one of you. And any other comments? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Y'all want to stay?
We have a motion. Do we have a second to adjourn? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed.